Hello everyone and welcome to the next in our series of daily origami for YouTube. Today we're going to continue with our theme of looking at some traditional origami, and we're going to make a phoenix today. This is basically a crane with a really long tail. Now you could probably also maybe leave the tail down and pretend that it's like a peacock or something like that, depending on the kind of color of paper that you use. But this does kind of require larger paper. It can be kind of hard when you're using just smaller origami paper to get it to do the things you need to, because the crane section becomes quite small. I'm going to be using a little bit larger paper just to make it a little easier to see. My paper is going to be 35 by 32.8 centimeters. And then I'll let you guys know the dimensions of everything when we're done so you can kind of see how it turns out. But it definitely helps a lot to start off with a little bit larger paper, just because, especially if you're new to stuff like this. If you like doing, these kinds of challenges and you would like to try to do something smaller, then good luck for sure. So you want to make sure you've got your paper here looking where it's kind of going the long ways here. And you probably can't see all that in the camera angle here, but I'm going to start with the color side facing down. Just go ahead and fold my paper in half. Once I've got my center marked there in the middle, flip it over. I'm going to take these top corners and fold down. Bring this down right into the center. And this is going to give you a nice big rectangular section here. I'm going to do the same thing on the other side too. Flip it over and you should have something that kind of looks like a white house. Then I'm going to take that upper edge and I'm going to fold it into the center, and when I do I'm going to let that flap from behind pop out. So you don't want to put a crease on that. So I'm just going to be bringing this part over. You want to try to keep everything as close to the center as you can. It doesn't have to be super, super close. And when you do this, you should be able to get, if you're getting the dimensions of your paper right, you should have just a tiny little bit of this that goes and sticks out. And that'll give you the prettiest wings and tail feathers. You could really use any rectangular shape, but I find this one gives the best kind of proportion for the tail. So we're going to bring that other side over too. Again, make sure you don't get that flap folded behind. Go ahead and let it pop out from behind. So I have something that kind of looks like this. You guys see the whole thing. Then I'm just going to go ahead and flip it over, and we're going to take these edges that you see here and fold towards the center. So I'll go ahead and start up here at the top and try to get a good point up there and bring this all the way down. You don't need this to be exactly on the center crease. Just shy of it's good. We're going to be folding everything in half later, so you don't really necessarily want it to be exactly on the center crease. So I'll bring this one over too. So you should have something that kind of looks like this with a big diamond at the top and the tail feathers looking something like this. Then I'm going to fold one more time. Now this part's a little tricky because what I want to do is I don't want my crease to come all the way up to the top here. I want it to kind of just fade off around a little bit before there. So I'm going to start off down here by just folding everything over and kind of just try to keep things coming towards the center. And then let it kind of go at an angle so that it doesn't quite reach all the way up to the top. So it kind of looks like this. So you've got a kind of a slight gradation going all the way up here. And just try to mimic that with the other side too, so that you can get something like this. So you get that part up there where it didn't go all the way up to the top, and then the bottom should look something like this. Then I'm going to flip it over, and I'm going to go ahead and take this part here and make sure everything is kind of snug over. Mine got a little separated. That's okay. I want to take this whole diamond shape and fold it in half. And the big key that you want to keep kind of going with everything is to make sure that your edges line up and you get a nice point here. Now, there's a lot of paper and this doesn't want to sometimes bend very nicely, so you need to kind of make sure you're curving it with your finger as you fold over. And you might get some awkward creases here, but don't worry about that. We'll work it all out at the end. Just first focus on getting a nice kind of point going here, and then try to get the other side too, so that we can get some nice little... And it's totally going to kind of pinch and be a little awkward there. Don't worry about that. That's okay. We'll work it all out as we finish things up. But what you should have, if you turn it over here, we still got the tail feathers looking something like this. And now we've got this whole part folded behind. Now I'm going to just go ahead and fold everything in half towards the left. Good crease on that. And then what I want to do is I'm going to take this part that you see here, and I'm going to bring it all the way up actually to the top. It's good to kind of lay this flat so when you do this you know what you're working with. I'm going to smush this down so that that crease comes straight down. And again, I'm going to get this section up here that's a little funky. We can kind of smooth it out in a second here. I'm going to just try to get the sides smoothed out and then get that part to lay flat. And then we're going to do a petal fold up here. So if I take the side here and fold it in towards the center, and you might find that some of your layers aren't matching up right, we want to just kind of work with it slowly, and then we can kind of make the creases and the edges balanced out as we finish the petal fold. So just try to get things started. Get this part to open up and reverse out, of course. And at this point, this is where you could kind of, you know, try to make sure everything's coming nice and smooth into the center. You can give a nice little gentle tug on things as you're doing this to make sure that all of this comes into the center the way it should, to help us create the wing for our phoenix here. Try to get a good kind of crease going there at the top. And then just find that spot where you can kind of get everything to lay flat. And then I'm just going to turn it over and repeat those similar steps on this side too. Again, I'm just going to be taking everything, opening up on that crease and smushing down. Now there's a lot of stuff up there at that top section. It's not maybe necessarily going to fold down very pretty. Don't worry about that. Try to keep everything just focused on this part smushing down. Try to keep stuff together that'll help make sure that, because this part does have a, you know, this is going to separate out. Try to keep those things kind of locked down as you're working so that you can smush down this area here. And, you know, especially get that edge creased out here, and then get everything to lay flat and get this side to lay out too. And then we can smush all this down at the top. And then again, do a nice little petal fold on this side too. And we'll adjust things as we open everything up here to make sure that we get nice creases that come right towards the center as much as possible. Try to adjust anything that didn't crease well before so that you get nice points here. Go. And then from that you can find the point to make this crease as you lay and pull everything out and flat. So that we get those two sections going here on either side. Now what we want to do is I'm going to take right here this part that you see, and I'm going to go ahead and reverse this out. And there is a lot of paper here, so you want to just kind of work with that as you do this and get this part to inverse up, inverse fold it, and then we're just going to find a good angle. This is the head, so you want to find a good angle for this, depending on, you know, if you want to make the head come pretty far up. I think it's probably good to have it just come, you want to give yourself a little bit of space here. Maybe even it up with that edge right here. That's a good angle right there. And then, this is how things are looking from this way too. Then we're just going to make a head up here, of course, so you can kind of find a good spot for your head. So we've got the head section completed here for the bird, and then we can take the tail area here, just open up to where that is, and push that up too, and reverse it, and you should get a really pretty fold for the tail. And then just find a good angle for everything, depending on how you want it to look. I think it tends to look good if you kind of, you could either have it coming straight up behind, or you can angle it out more. I'm just going to kind of mimic the angle that I did for the front a little bit here, so get that going. And then you could separate out the tail feathers a little bit here to kind of give you those different layers, and then take the wings and get them to kind of fold out a little too here. And if you wanted to use this like as a mobile or a mobile kind of hanging, this would be a great kind of angle for things. If you were hoping to have it stand in some way, you'd probably want to angle out, this a little bit. It'd probably be a little tricky to find. Let's see if we can find a good balance, because you do need to balance the weight of the tail with the weight of the rest of things. That kind of gives you a good angle right there. Maybe just going straight out if you want it to just stand like so. Whereas bringing it up at a higher angle, you could use then for when you maybe hang the bird if you wanted to. But that kind of gives you this really pretty long-tailed bird. Like I said, you could really use that in so many different ways depending on what you're using it for. Obviously, if you use like oranges and reds, you're going to have a really pretty phoenix. Lots of different ways that you can do that. If you wanted to have a little bit more narrow kind of head here for the shape of the bird, what you could do if you wanted to is just open this up and fold the sides into the center and give yourself a little bit more of a narrow head. And it's just a point of preference of what you prefer. I think, you know, we tend, like especially like for a peacock, they tend to have such a kind of graceful kind of head, and so maybe having this kind of narrower head shape that maybe looks a little bit more like a crane would be a little better. Kind of keeps things a little cleaner, but that should give you kind of a finished little completed phoenix, which is our finished project there. Now let me get my long ruler so I can tell you guys how big this thing is, because it's a little big. Here we go. About 30 centimeters, and I'd say, you know, when you just casually spread out the wings, it's about 14. So 30 centimeters long and about 14 centimeters for the wingspan. And you know, if you're using this for some kind of particular project, you can kind of use those dimensions as a guide to help you make sure you make your bird the shape that you prefer it to be. And again, like I said, you can adjust the head like I did here. You can either have like a little fatter head, or we can narrow it out like we did here. So, but that is our finished project for today. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.